Welcome to Donuts, Design, and Debate, the podcast where we discuss and you decide how many coveted donuts a particular design deserves. We're your hosts, Matt Robison and Aaron Dietzen, and what are we debating today, Aaron?
Today, we're going to dive into a very unique building, something that is still in the process of being completed, but exists enough that we can talk about it and its design. We're talking, of course, about the Museum of the Future. That's
right, the Museum of the Future. And I just want to say, if you're listening to this and you don't know what the Museum of the Future is, just open up a new tab, pause this if you're listening on the podcast, look this thing up because it is absolutely mind-bogglingly crazy.
All right, I want to set a ground rule about this debate as we get into it, okay? All right, up front, the shape of the building is a donut. And I don't think either of us, pro or con, should be allowed to use the fact that it is a donut as a point in our arguments.
Yeah, I think that's a win for everyone.
Yeah. See, so the pro can't lean too heavily into it. Con can't, fight it because it's a donut. Come on. So, yeah, that's ground rule.
Rising frosting, raises all donuts. And so we at the Donut Podcast, of course, and along with this museum, are both happy to be considered among the same
that's right.
echelon.
The donut echelon.
Yeah, and Danielle was saying it is a distorted donut. It's a little bit. Right. It's a different, but it is a torus in its shape, certainly.
That's right.
But yeah, so we're going to be voting on the different principles of design later on to see if if the Museum of the Future counts as good design. But what do you say we jump into the history of the museum?
Let's talk about this thing. So it's not an old building. Like I said, it actually isn't open to the public yet. Everything I've read online says they're hoping to open by the end of this year. But it has been in design and fabrication for 3-4 years, something like that. Actually, the design probably goes even further back than that.
Yeah, I think 2015 is when the architect won the bid for the project. So they've at least been thinking about it since then. But I think the idea of the museum is to, as with any museum, kind of inspire and spread knowledge and stuff like this, but about the future instead of the past. So the idea of the structure is to kind of live that same inspiration. So I guess I don't know exactly where to start. There's so many things about this building that are so crazy. I guess let's just talk about what the outside looks like and then what the inside looks like. So the outside has like Arabic script on the outside. It looks like we talked about, kind of a donut, like an extended sort of torus. The script is a poem that was written by the ruler of Dubai, and so I think the outer shape of it is supposed to represent like kind of what we know now, what the present is, and the inside, the blank part of the donut is sort of meant to represent the future, the possibility of what could be going forward.
A window, which is which actually kind of puts a spin on any time I eat a donut, I now have an opportunity to look into the future, like look through the donut hole into the future. I think that's pretty incredible.
All that sugar coursing through your veins, you can see right through the future. Right through
I can see sound.
The present into the future.
But yeah, it is a very, very unique building. And Trimble actually has some history with this building, which is kind of unique. A lot of the structural design work was actually done in Tekla. So it's pretty cool. We actually did not a case study, but a kind of a story about how Tekla was used and some of the imagery of the actual drawings of the structure from Tekla. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. For how streamlined and shapely the outside of the building is, the model itself is oh my gosh, this is so complex and there's so many, it just looks, I actually have some thing written down about the steel diagrid structure. So that's they actually used, this is the engineering company used, they wrote their own algorithm to figure out the optimal configuration for all the steel beams and connections and all that kind of stuff. And then each individual floor is like a composite concrete floor slab. But because of this like exterior structure, there's no columns on the inside. So it's kind of this like vast open space, even though it's, a weird shape, which seems like it'd be cool. And then also, like I said, the script is on the outside, and the window, those like characters act as windows to the outside. So all that natural light comes in through the words. And then on the inside, I think, and check me if I'm wrong on this, I've like you said, the museum's not open to the public yet, but there's been a couple kind of exhibits here and there. And I heard that like in the future, the museum is going to be used for each floor is going to be kind of like a different version or vision of the future with different, technologies, or kind of like an experiential learning thing where you walk in and it's like, futuristic, all kinds of augmented realities or whatever this, whatever they envision for that particular floor will be different on each one. So that's pretty sweet.
It is pretty cool. And some numbers for those of you who are into that sort of thing. The building itself is 77 meters high and 30,000 meters squared, the face of it is. It has 2,400 intersecting steel beams to create that diagrid that Matt was talking about, and the skin itself is 17,000 meters squared. So it's a lot of shape. I mean, it's a lot of building. There are 8 floors in it, 7 of which hold those different I don't know what you call them, because some of them are interactive and some of them are more like traditional museum, but what you're looking at is what's to come. So it's a very unique idea. So it's and a unique building. And I really kind of feel like we need to dive in and find out where we stand with this particular building as far as our principles of design.
I can't say unbiased any longer.
That's right. We did our best to hide our true thoughts or our pre-prepared thoughts.
Right.
So back before before now, in the Museum of the Past, Matt and I flipped a coin to decide who is going to argue pro and who is going to argue con. Matt came up with the pro side of the coin, while I came up with con. So Matt will be arguing why the Museum of the Future is good design, and I will be arguing why it is not. And of course, just to recap, so you guys have this in your head and you're thinking about this, because once we get done talking about this, we'll ask you to vote. The studio audience, if you're listening to this recorded, please join us live sometime, because you can actually have a real impact on the show, both through comments and through the final votes. But just to recap, our principles of design are: is the design useful? Does this design have aesthetic appeal? Is the design simple? Is the design environmentally friendly? And does this design feel honest? Those are the 5 points that we'll be voting against. And we're going to hop in right now. As usual, pro goes first. So Matt's going to take it away and tell you why he believes Museum of the Future is a good design. Mm-hmm. Fire away.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine, if you will, a museum of the future. Okay, so the idea behind this museum is to do what museums do: inspire and spread knowledge, but is obviously, instead of the past, the future. So there's a number of things that the foundation that built this museum, is doing outside of this structure that goes along with that goal of envisioning the future, making the future today, and that kind of stuff. Along with accelerator programs, incubators, regulatory sandboxes. These are all part of the larger idea that this structure represents. And I think if you think about it as an idea, as a representation of what can be, that's really where this structure stands. And we're going to get into more of the details about the actual structure itself, but I, in jest, started with this sort of inspirational message up front, but I really think that's kind of the goal of the entire project. And join me on this journey of inspiration. But I think, is this design useful? Absolutely it is. I mean, the goal is to bring that imagination, that hope for the future, and that knowledge to anyone who sees the structure. I mean, is it useful? It's a museum, So I think teaching the next generation things about what could be inspiring and spreading knowledge, is that useful to society? You decide in your vote later. Is the building aesthetic? I think you might look at it at first and be like, that's nothing like I've ever seen before. It's ugly, or you could think of like, it's hard to picture it in pictures, because it doesn't look like a building. It looks like a sculpture or something, but let me remind you, this is a building. And so the aesthetics come from the simplicity of the exterior, but also the amazing engineering that went into making this idea a reality. And I think aesthetic, it fits into the environment. It's larger than life. If you're in Dubai or if you're visiting Dubai, that's what you're looking for. This kind of larger than life realization of imagination. And along with that, is this design simple? I mean, look at the outside. It looks like a smooth shape, but like Aaron said, it's tens of thousands of these individual panels that have been designed and thought through and fabricated with everything, designed beforehand. There's so much that's been thought through this design to make this a simple and experience from the outside and from the inside as well. Is it environmental? It's LEED Platinum. Done. And is the design honest? I think it's a museum of the future. It's using these futuristic design and fabrication techniques, technologies, and implementations that have never been thought of before. They've never been done before. So it certainly practices what it preaches, and it walks the walk. And it is an honest design. And I think I also want to remind you that this building speaks. This building inspires and talks to future generations about what could be. And so I'll just leave you with the thought of what the inscription on the outside of the building says. We might not live for hundreds of years, but the products of our creativity can leave a legacy long after we are gone. The future belongs to those who can imagine it, design it, and execute it. The future does not wait. The future can be designed and built today. I rest my case. Yay! Where's the applause sound effect? Yay! Everyone in the chat is clapping. You can't hear it, but no, they're all clapping.
I think that is the collective sound of heads shaking. That's what I hear. Is it's less clapping and more this sound.
Oh, if a head shakes in the in the forest, does it leave its sound? No.
All right, so let's talk about some reality of what's going on here. Okay, so if you've seen it, you will know that this is obviously not a building that was designed to be a building. This thing was designed to be ostentatious. This thing was designed to spend money, and that's what it does. It could what it does be done with a square building, a rectangle? Yeah. In fact, it could be done probably easier. I get it. I mean, we want to have buildings that stand out. We want to make our mark. That's great. That's fine. But we're here to talk about the design of things. So when somebody asks me, okay, what's design about? Well, we all have our own definitions, and we have our principles that make up what makes a good design on this podcast. When I think about design, I think about that balance of form and function. Does it do what it does? Does it do a good job of it? And does it do a good job while looking good? like Matt, basically. So I gotta say, it looks like something, but I mean, it's got to be the most dishonest building I've ever seen. It does not look like a museum. It doesn't look like a building. I mean, it's a liar. It's lying. Its existence is a lie. But the thing that gets me the most, like I said, it is ostentatious. It is pretentious in design, and it's expensive. I looked up, there's actually, both Matt and I came to the conclusion there's a serious lack of specific information about the museum. We found a lot of good general data about it, but finding like just exact information was rough. But I did find that it costs $136 million to build. Museums are not simple buildings. There are requirements in there in place that other buildings don't have to have. But just to give you an idea, the Guggenheim cost $89 million. So that's a difference of nearly $50 million that could have been spent somewhere else. So again, just plugging into the fact that it's not necessarily the design that was driving this. This was intentionally designed to be a showpiece. So as we're talking about design, practical design for a building, it being a showpiece, maybe not the ideal way to design something. The other thing that I wanted to call out was, we talked about, is it environmentally friendly? And I think that Matt bobbed and weaved and said lead and then walked out of the room. I want to challenge that a little bit because there's a lot of material in this building. I know steel is often referred to as being renewable, but the fact of the matter is, when you take a steel beam and you build it and you put it somewhere, it doesn't matter if it can be recycled later. It's not available anymore. So the amount of material that had to go into making this shape versus had it been a 7-story, more traditional shape building, it consumed more materials than a like-sized building of traditional design would have. So in that aspect, I have a hard time going, well, yeah, so in the future it'll use less energy or something when it used twice as much of a non-renewable resource as it would have if it were traditionally built. So I have a hard time with that. It's great. Lead, awesome. Lead, good stuff, but you're still using a lot of materials. You're digging up a lot of steel out of the ground. So I have a hard time with that. But in the end, I mean, the fact of the matter is we're talking about design of the building, and I think it's pretty easy to look at this building and go, that was designed for one thing and one thing only, and that is to look like a fancy thing. That's what I got.
Nice. Wow. A lot of points in there for me to respond to. But yeah, no, that was a interesting take on your opinion for sure. Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about the price a little bit. I think it's like, can you put a price on the future of humanity?
Yes, $89 million.
For everybody? Hey, that's not enough money to go around, man. So I think that this is the future we're talking about. It's not about this building, what this building does. It's what it stands for. And it stands for, these incubators and kind of bringing this brain trust of all these, creative ideas in order to solve the problems that humanity is going to face down the future. And look, do you have to maybe invest a little bit up front in order to expedite that inspiration versus having somebody go into just like a 3-story brick building? Sure, why not?
Oh, so you're saying you can't design for the future unless you're inspired by $136 million of stainless steel in front of you. That's casting a pretty weak pale over all of humanity to say that, we could be the Jetsons by now, but we haven't had a good enough future or haven't had a good enough museum. So that's why we don't have flying cars still.
I'm not saying you can't be inspired without that, but that it does inspire people just walking down the road every day. I think one thing that's great about aesthetic architecture like this is it makes you feel like the impossible is possible, because look at this donut that turned into a building. Like you said, it's like a sculpture. It's like a poem come to life. It's not trying to be a building. It's trying to be something more, something.
So you're agreeing that it's not honest is what I just heard you say.
No, it's honest in its dishonesty.
It's honestly not trying to be what it is.
No, but it's trying to change your idea of what a building is, and it's trying to change your mind, trying to expand your horizons, and that's the honesty that I'm trying to get to the point of. Is this building is doing it for you?
Well, let's see if it's doing it for our audience. I think we argued as much as we can argue about this. So we're going to open up our polls now. We're going to run through these 1 point at a time, and we're going to go back and forth and just kind of give a mini recap, like a minute or so each, just to help you guys refresh and make the best decision against the Museum of the Future. Wait, no, I mean...
Yes. We turn on the polls, you vote yes, we get out of here, we have a good weekend.
And this poll will result, of course, in a tally of the number of coveted donuts we give this design. So anywhere from 0 to 5. Right now we're running 2.5, 3.5 per item. So this will be interesting because...
Let's change that today.
We haven't really... This is the first time we've taken a specific thing, like a thing that exists in real space, and analyzed the design. So this will be interesting to see where we go with this. So,
yeah.
All right. With that, should we hop in?
Absolutely. So the first criterion that we're judging this building's design on is the design useful? I think, of course, the design of this is useful. Its goal is to bring a hope to people about the future, to inspire somebody, like I said, that the impossible can be done today, and that we create our own future. And the building fulfills that goal. That's the use, and it's useful.
See, now that just sounds like a bunch of usefulness of the foundation that's running it, not the building itself. Yeah, it's a building. It keeps the rain off the people inside of it. But is this the most useful way to build a building like that? That's what when I look at it, I go, man, you have this space, you have this money. Is this the most useful thing to do with it? Is this the most useful way to design this building? If you click down on the bottom where it says polls right now, you can actually cast your vote. You can click on the vote button, and you can help us decide that this building is or is not useful. I mean, yeah. No,
I mean, yes, exactly. Open floors, no columns, says Sven. It's breaking ground on how buildings can be imagined and thought of in the future. This is forget, that you have to have a rectangular shape in order to walk inside. You can walk into a thing that's the shape of your mug. I mean, you can do it. It's possible today.
Hey, we said we were going to use donuts as an argument.
Hey,
Matt defaulted on this point. No points given.
Okay.
All right. I think we got this right.
Close the polls?
We'll close that one. 1 donut for usefulness. Museum of the Future has a donut. All right.
And actually, before we start the next one, Sven says it would be a nightmare for mechanical. And one thing that I didn't go into earlier is because this building was so many models and designs and 3D laser scans and all this kind of stuff of it were made. I read an interview that said that the MEP was actually a breeze. There was no clash problems at all because they had engineered and designed everything so far in advance. Everything was thought out to like the millimeter that they didn't have any problems that they normally do because everything was already in place. So that's a great design.
Regardless of how this ends up going, I will say that it is a feat of engineering. I'll give it that the people who did their work on it, the architecture and structural people who were involved, it's impressive. It doesn't make a good design. It makes it a feat.
No,
all right.
The design takes that into consideration, of course, as well.
All right. Number 2. Does this design have aesthetic appeal?
Go ahead.
I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. When I look at a building, I want to see something that I don't need everything to be totally traditional. The Guggenheim, for example, is a rounded off, round building. We got the Louvre, which has got the pyramid. That's great. That's awesome. I just don't necessarily want to see a building that I'm going to that's missing a big chunk out of the middle of it. That 20% of it actually rests on the ground of the base of it. I mean, as far as a thing I have to go spend time in, I don't love the way that it looks.
But you can like see out through the inside. You can like see down. You can see around through this. I mean, yes, look, it's a building, sure. But it's also, like I said, it's an idea. It's a sculpture. It's a poem. It's like it's like a thought and like human ingenuity manifest. I mean, it's beautiful and absolutely stunning to look at. Like if you look at YouTube videos, like you said, there's not a lot of stuff you can see, but you can see YouTube videos of people walking down the road and they turn and you see this thing down the street and you're like, wait, what? This is like, how is this real? You know, it looks like a video game or some kind of simulation or something because it's that aesthetically pleasing.
Okay, yeah, you got this point. It's 2 points. 2 donuts. All right, shut that thing
donuts.
down. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay, the next criterion is this design simple? And, I think when we talk about simplicity in design, we're talking about taking everything that's not needed and separating that from the design. Like I said earlier, the models themselves are insanely complex and gorgeous in their own right, but this complexity is simplicity. Like I said, they use these I can't think of the algorithms to simplify it to the most structurally perfect way that it could possibly be built. It's covered in this magical coating that makes it look beautiful from the outside and inside. There's no pillars inside. Everything about this is simple. The fire evacuation and smoke extraction strategies have been thought through. The cleaning of the exterior has been thought through. Parametric models of people moving through the space. They use laser scanning, and I mentioned the MEP had no problems because it was so simply designed.
I think you're confusing efficiency with simplicity, because I read that there was 24 separate Tekla models just for the structural grid of the building. There was nothing simple about this. There is nothing simple about this. This is a complex building. Building a a torus-shaped, I'm not going to break the rules. A torus-shaped building is not a simple process. You're taking, gravity travels up to down. There's nothing up to down in this. Everything has an arc path. Transferring load through an arc versus vertically, it's not simple. There's nothing simple about this building.
No, the implementation was simple because so much great design went into it. When they put together the steel structure, they said they were surprised by how perfectly everything fit. They didn't have to do any changes because of this 3D design, which we talk about. Build it, digitally first, and then this is how design is moving.
Hey,
you go onto the job site.
As a digital designer, I take a little bit of offense saying that it's simple to design things well in 3D. There's a lot of complicated time and hours that went into that.
Simplicity is an important piece of it.
All right, I think you got to concede that one. That did not get a point. The Museum of the Future, according to our own jury here, is not simple.
Man,
all right.
We got to change the definition of simple next week.
Is this design, number 4, is this design environmentally friendly?
Go ahead.
I mean, this is pretty simple. This used a whole lot of steel. I mean, not a little bit of steel. 2,400 steel beams, 17,000 square meters of stainless steel that could be used somewhere else, and it wasn't. It was dug up, it was refined, it was used on this building. So, I mean, you can talk about what's it going to do in the future, long-term, that kind of thing. That's cool. That's great. It's going to be good someday. But how long does it take to offset how much material was mined in order to build this building that could have been built a different way?
I don't have that exact figure with me in front of me here, but I do know that it's the building of a building is not the only thing that uses environmental resources. It's also obviously the operation of the building, and that's what the LEED Platinum certification goes into. I mean, the building is paving the way for the future of cities to be environmentally friendly amidst these growing, climate change and resource scarcity and overpopulation, all these huge issues that the Museum of the Future is solving, not only in its design itself, but in its scope of theory about life and humanity in the world. And so, I think...
So that offsets strip mining thousands of tons of metal out of the earth.
Look, thousands of tons of metal out of the earth are going to be used for other buildings already. This is for what we can change about the future. This is for you. This is for me. This is for us. This is for the planet. And I think environmentally friendly is without question something you should click on that polls, click yes. And let's move forward. Let's add another donut to the belt here of the museum.
I'm afraid not. Our jury has spoken and said that this is not environmentally friendly.
My friends.
All right. So we're currently split. We are currently 2-2. The Museum of the Future currently has 2 out of 4 donuts, and we have 1 point to go. Now, to remind you guys, we have split donuts in the past. So if the poll comes up split 50-50, we do give half donuts. So it is
not my first choice to split a donut. I'd rather have the whole thing, but if we need to, I'm happy to share.
Hey, this is your show. This is where you guys take the lead, and you tell us, what if you tell us to split a donut, we'll split a donut. So this is the last point is, does this design feel honest? Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, and I mean, this design is the goal of the design is the future. It's to inspire and to show people what's possible, what can be done today that will, build the world and the cities of the future. It walks the walk. It's using, like we talked, these techniques and these kind of structural models that are pushing everything's being pushed to the limit and redlined in order to make this building. New things are being accomplished every single day in order to design this, put it up, and experience it. So I think it walks the walk, it talks the talk. It's the most honest design there could be in the world.
All right, well, I just want to remind everybody what this principle means. Is the design feel honest? The question here is the thing in question doing what it says it's going to do and being what it's supposed to be? I mean, is wood look like wood? Does metal look like metal? Does this building look like a building? No, we admitted right up front. This building's a liar. This building is pretending to be... I can't say the D word because we said we wouldn't talk about it being donut. But it doesn't look like a building. It looks like a sculpture. It looks like a piece of art. So if you're actually breaking this down and looking at the exact definition of what we had, no, this building is not trying to be a building. This building is trying to be a work of art. This building is trying to be a window. This is not a building being a building. This is something else.
You need to experience the Museum of the Future so you can expand your mind outside of your narrow definition of what honesty is in design, because...
Well, you sound like a lawyer. There's not a way to interpret honesty. Sometimes it's true or not.
No, it depends on what your definition of honest is. And, I'm here to say that I, going into the Thanksgiving weekend, am thankful to everyone in the audience for voting yes on the Museum of the Future Feel Honest, because we got another donut, baby. Cha-ching!
That's right. The final score, according to you, our listeners, is 3 out of 5 donuts. The Museum of the Future gets 3 out of 5 donuts here on Donuts Design and Debate, episode number 5.
Ow, ow, ow. 3 bites of the donut, 3
that was
donuts
a donut count.
in the bag. So that was a lot of fun. I'm happy to see that the Museum of the Future get the eyeballs, and that's one other thing, is that it was kind of designed to look like an eye. If you look at it, it kind of looks like an eye. Seeing the future, like you said, through the donut.
A very unique structure, unique building, and a unique premise. The whole idea of doing something which is traditionally something that looks into the past, but turning around and looking into the future. It's Very unique.
Topsy-turvy.
That's right. Well, that wraps another topic up. We do have one more episode coming up this year. This year being 2021, we will be recording one last podcast on December 9th here noon Mountain Time. So if you're listening to this recorded, join us for our last live session of the year on the 9th of December on Crowdcast. If you are already here, come back. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, hey, I can speak for myself, and I had a lot of fun here. Everyone in the chat, thank you for dropping all the knowledge and for voting, of course. And yeah, we're psyched to have you listen. So appreciate that, and yeah, we'll hope to reach your ears in the future as well. So thanks.
All right, thank you very much, guys. See you next time.
This has been a Trimble Media production. Thanks for listening to Donuts, Design, and Debate. If you have an opinion about our topic today, or if you have an idea for a future debate, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at donuts@trimble.com. Don't forget to rate and review the show. It really helps us out. Thanks again for tuning in, and take care.